Well, hello everyone. It's Ashley from Lovely Commotion. Happy Sunday to you. Happy New Year again. We're in January, and I know that sometimes January can definitely feel like a new start. It's a new year, and I always like to bring in different things into my classroom and kind of try out new things. It's kind of like a reset, just like the beginning of the year is. And so, if you love to add new things to your classroom come January, try out some new lessons or new activities for your kiddos, drop in the comments, let me know. Say, yeah, me too, that you love to add new things. Oh, sorry. So today I wanted to share with you 5 resources that I think could really benefit you. So I know that there is a ton of resources out there for preschool teachers. We are so blessed to be living in a time where we all can learn from each other virtually and be able to share ideas and go on Pinterest and learn new things and get inspired. And that is such a blessing, but it's also sometimes hard because you don't know exactly like which things are going to be good for me and my students, which things are just fluff, and which are things that could really benefit them. And so that is one of my missions when I set out to create Lovely Commotion. It started many moons ago, creating different resources, and I found the need for some quality, play based, really intentional resources, things that I would use in my classroom, nothing fluff. And so throughout the years, I have been doing that, and I use the resources that are in my store in my own classroom. And they were thought of because I was in my classroom and what I needed and what I wanted. And of course, as we all grow and learn new things, that kind of goes with it, right? We come up with new ideas, we change the way we do things because we have learned through research and things like that. And so I like to try to always make sure that what I'm putting in front of students is intentional and it is what I feel is best for my students at that time. So I wanted to share these 5 resources with you because, and they're not just one single resource. Many of them are kind of like a bundle or a group of resources because I want to share what's working for me and let you in on my absolute favorites and my absolute must have. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to put some pictures up here on the screen and talk to you a little bit about them. The first thing that I feel like we definitely need in the early childhood realm is social emotional learning. Here, let me scoot over just a tad here. I feel like we teach social emotional all day long, right? We do. We do. While they're playing, we're helping them through problems. While they are lining up, we're talking about being kind and asking for permission to, may I stand here? May I come in front of you? Like so many different social emotional things we do all the time. Like not discounting that. Those are so incredibly important. But I found um kind of a need. I kind of felt like maybe I could be more intentional with that and teach them as a whole, because as we know, as opportunities arise, that's the best time they're going to learn it. But they don't always arise for every student. The lesson that maybe you're wanting them to learn, like the one on the screen about perseverance, that may not arise for every student when you're able to jump in. And so I wanted to do things that were more intentional to add to what I was already doing through play, what I was already helping them learn. I was feeling like a coach on the sidelines, right? Like I'm feeling like I'm right there next to them and saying, what do you think you could do next? Or, ooh, that was really hard. What can you try? That didn't work. I felt like the cheerleader, but I also wanted to be more intentional too, so that maybe they could start using that verbiage as well. And so I created a set of social emotional learning units. I really have liked these a lot because I found that my students are getting it. It's like, yeah. And some of them more than others, and depending on the social emotional skill that we're working on. But it's so interesting to see because they can start using some of that verbiage later in their play with their peers. And so I created 8 different units, and I can kind of go through the units with you, but I just wanted to show you. Each comes with 4 different lesson plans, and they're around like a general topic. So like the first unit has 4 lesson plans that are about I and me. So kind of self learning about ourselves and learning about our feelings and things like that. And the second one is appreciating differences, learning about others and how others learn. And then also, let's see, calming the stress. That one, super helpful because our kiddos sometimes feel that anxiousness and that anger, and how we can help them move through that. Let me show you another picture here. This one is I can follow the rules. So this is like a self-management. So unit 4 is impulses and self-discipline. So learning how to control some of those impulses, and learning about self-discipline. How can I do what's right even though I don't necessarily want to, type of thing. 5 is listening and speaking. How can we tell others what we want and get them to, maybe we have to express what we want in order to get that. And then also the listening side of what is that friend trying to tell you and how can you validate that? And these are deep skills, right? Like we're just scratching the surface. We are just introducing the concept, right? In a child-friendly way. Obviously, mastery is not expected. Many adults haven't mastered a lot of these social emotional skills, but we are that ground level. We are where we can start these things. And this is probably the most important work that we do, because if they don't have this foundation of social emotional skills and people skills and being able to go out into a workplace and work for others and with others, they're going to struggle. And so it really doesn't matter how many academic skills they may know if they aren't able to use those social skills in our social world. They're going to struggle a little bit, and they're not going to be as successful as maybe we want them to be. So we are laying that foundation. So then we also talk about in Unit 6, making friends, how to make a friend, like how to go up and talk to a friend, how to be a good friend is Unit 7, and Unit 8 is handling peer problems, which obviously those come up pretty often in, all of childhood and even adulthood. And so starting that process of teaching them how to handle that at a young age. Obviously, I created them to kind of build off of each other, but if you're finding that your students are having a specific area of issue that you're seeing, you could always just go straight there, right? They're having problems making friends, or you don't see them being good friends, you could go to a unit like that. But I kind of wanted to show you inside of them. So like this has a lesson plan in it. It also has a song. I always like to add in a song. And then it usually it does have a book list, so you can choose a book. So generally what I'll do is I will read a book. We will discuss. So it tells up here, read, discuss, and then there's an activity. So like this one has some scenarios. So we talk about the scenarios and what they should do in that scenario. Here's another one, same type of thing, has some scenarios, and I believe I have one more for you. Yeah, so like one of them for self-management is everyone has a bubble, kind of respecting that space. You can see down at the bottom the activity for waiting. There's a lesson on waiting is hard and patience, and that's, not easy for anyone. And so there's a sort down there of what's showing patience, what's not showing patience. So basically I go through, I read a book that is tied to that specific social emotional skill that we're looking at. Then we discuss it. There's some discussion points there, very bolted, very quick. We're not talking about this grand discussion time. They're just some things that I want to make sure to point out from the book and about the skill. And then there's the extension activity, which usually takes no more than 5 minutes. Some of them might be a little more in depth, but mostly I try to keep that under 5 minutes so that we can get this done quickly, because I know obviously we work with young children and they're not going to be with me all that long, but I have been amazed at what these have done in my classroom. This being intentional side of it, I will hear kids say things like, that's not being patient. You're not being patient. They're using these big words, they're using the vocabulary, they're starting to understand what this means. And so when I start singing the patient song, it's like, oh yeah, we learned about that. So they already have this piece of knowledge outside of it. They have this schema behind it, like, oh yeah, remember when we did this? Now I'm using it in real life. So these have been huge. And I think that even if these are not work for you, which is perfectly understandable, everybody's minds work differently, having some sort of social emotional support for your children is huge. Especially in 2020. Obviously it's 2021 now, but our kiddos lived through 2020. There was different stresses, different things that they may have had to deal with in their families or at school looks different. So definitely giving them the tools to make good choices, the tools to self-regulate. So huge. So that's number one, social emotional units. I definitely think that is something that could be so hugely beneficial to every classroom. The next one is literacy units, and I have switched. I shouldn't say switched. I kind of combined now my thematic units with literacy units because what I was finding was that I wanted to dig deeper. I wanted to dig deeper into books. I wanted my children to create a love around books, a love around authors, using all those kind of pre-reading skills and doing all this wonderful literacy rich things that I wasn't getting from doing just purely thematic. And so what I set out to do, and this was a couple years ago, I set out to create some literacy units that kind of build on each other. They're fairly short because we do them daily, but they also are on theme. So I have 9 different themes of literacy units, and I do one a month basically. And so there's welcome to preschool, social emotional, fall, holiday, winter, friendship, spring. There's a books unit, more like learning about a book and how to read a book and loving books, and then insects as well. And so the one on the screen is the winter one. And so there is 4 different focus books in each one. And I tried to make sure that these literacy units kind of wrapped around each other and went back to authors that we had already covered. It wasn't totally easy to do, and I wasn't able to do them for all of them, but many times, like, we will have read Jan Brett, Gingerbread Baby. We are going to go back to Jan Brett and do The Mitten. So kind of building on that, and then also bringing in some nonfiction as well, so we can learn a little bit about nonfiction. And so a lot of what is in these literacy units are what I like to refer to as noticing aloud. So there's some pretty complex skills in here. I'm not going to say there's not. Like, we're looking at making predictions and the craft that an author uses and the illustrator's craft. I mean, these are big things, right? But I'm just wanting to set that foundation. And so I focus a lot on noticing aloud. Oh, I noticed in this book how the author uses speech bubbles. And then they're like, really? Where? And then we briefly talk about that. And then it is so cool because the next time we read a book with speech bubbles, guess what? Hey, I see the speech bubbles. I also like to focus on authors because I want them to know that authors are real people, and real people write books. They aren't able to see these people, right? And so I show them a picture. I tell them a little bit about them. They wrote this book, and they wrote this book, and they wrote this book, and they love this about writing books. And so I did some research on all these authors that we're doing so that I can share with them. And so it's so funny because they'll just talk about Eric Carle like he's a friend, right? Like, hey, is this one of those Eric Carle books? I like that guy. Yeah, it is, right? Because I want them to understand that they can be writers too. They can be writers. They can do things that writers do. It may not look exactly like an adult writer, but they can do that. And so there is 5 days in each of these focus books. So you can kind of see this is one page of a lesson plan. Behind it, there's some extension activities. There's also At the very end, an extension activity built in. So this one is like sorting over and under the snow, because the book is Over and Under the Snow, which is a great book. Also, like this one had the puppets in it, so we can retell the story. But I encourage you to look into this. I've got a Facebook video kind of that goes a little bit deeper to show you what is in the fall unit, but these have been so amazing. Like, I just felt the need to go deeper, and the thematic units were only like hitting the surface. Like, I was reading the book and we were talking a little bit about the book, but we certainly were not going deep into vocabulary. We weren't going deep into authors. We were not going deep into author's craft or anything like that. And I know that it sounds crazy, like kids don't understand that. But I'm telling you, when you notice aloud and you pick one thing, they start to get it. And it's crazy. And you will be so shocked. But my heart just grows a little bit knowing that these kids are going to be book lovers, because they can't wait to see what else that author wrote. And they can't wait to see what Elephant and Piggy do next, right? Like, they are already in love with books. And that is our main goal, right? Is to get them in love with books. And so literacy units have done that for us. My colleague also uses them across the hall, and she has loved them too. And so I encourage you just to check that out. What kind of literacy are you bringing in? And not just letters and numbers, or sorry, not numbers, not just letters and letter sounds, right? What are you bringing in that highlights books, authors, how they're written, the structure of a story, retelling, all these amazing comprehension, deep level skills, right? So that is definitely something that has been amazing for us this year. Also, Stim challenges. That's something that's been big lately. I love a Stim challenge mainly because, I mean, these kiddos are having to use problem solving skills. And that is something that we are missing right now. My husband is a middle school teacher, and he will tell you the problem solving skills of our middle schoolers right now are struggling. They don't know how to figure out a problem. And so by making it a challenge and making it a little bit fun, we are creating these little scientists, right? We're creating them to go, I wonder what would happen if, or that didn't work. What can I try next? And then that's tying into your social emotional units, right? You used perseverance. You tried again, even though it was hard. And so it's just kind of bringing that all together. And so for the STEM units, there are four for each month. 4 in each month. And so the picture on the screen is of December, and they're simple. They're not made to take up a lot of time. They're not made to be multi-step. We are talking about preschoolers, but they are designed to create interest. And some of them are around more of the engineering side. Some of them are around the more science experiment side, but all of them have a prompt with them. And so let me see. I'm not sure if let me see if there's a picture of the prompt. No. But they do have some awesome vocab, which you can see in this picture. And I tried to write it in kid-friendly terms. So when you read it to them at what disintegrate means, it's not going to be some really hard to understand definition like you would find in the dictionary. Yeah. But the lessons include some read aloud ideas if you want to do a read aloud and tie that to it. It also includes the materials that you'll need, obviously, very helpful. The vocab that you can talk about, the challenge question, so just a simple question. Does a pumpkin float, right? That is your focus question. And then it also includes kind of a prompt. Like, it's a challenge prompt, but it is in the way of a story. So, one of them might be Myra and her grandma were talking about pumpkins. They wanted to see what would happen when they washed the pumpkin. Did it float in the water? Did it sink in the water? There's a different prompt. That probably wasn't the best example, but there are some prompts in there to help you kind of just get your students going, oh, okay. Now I understand. Because sometimes they'll stare at that table and they'll be like, what am I supposed to do with all this stuff? And you're like, well, do you think you could make a card structure? Like, one of them is, it was on the other one. could you make a card structure out of greeting cards? Well, they're not going to automatically maybe go that way. And so using the prompt helps them kind of go, okay, maybe I can solve that problem that the person is having in this prompt. So those have been something that obviously has been huge in education anyway, but for good reason. We are right there able to encourage those problem solving skills, those try again skills, even when it's hard, right? How to ask for help, how to maybe work with a peer, like some majorly awesome good stuff coming out of STEM challenges that maybe don't even have as much to do with the challenge itself as it does with the process that they're going through. So another thing that has been working really well is circle time games. I was finding that circle time was getting a little dull. I'm not sure if you can relate, but going through the same thing is something they love, right? I don't necessarily love going through the same, we greet everyone, we wish everyone well, we sing the same songs, we do the same thing. And while many of them absolutely love it and cannot even imagine you not doing it, right? They'll even remind you, like, we didn't do this in circle time. They need that structure. There also are some kiddos who are like, okay, are we done yet? We do the same thing all the time. And so I kind of wanted to bridge that gap of still having the very predictable circle time, but then on the end, adding in something that is new and exciting. And so that's when I created these games. So I have 3 sets of games right now, but there's going to be 4. There's going to be a summer one. So there's winter, fall, Easter, spring, and there will be summer. Winter has in it 2 sets of games. One set is winter themed. Wow. And one set is holiday themed. Fall has more of like a back to school theme and like an autumn theme falling. And then this Easter one that you see up here has a spring and an Easter theme. Now, while I teach in a wonderful play-based, faith-based preschool, these resources for holiday and Easter don't necessarily, they don't incorporate things that are faith-based so that more people are able to use them. And so you'll just find for Easter, you'll just find things like a bunny, carrots, eggs, things like that. Same with holiday. Santa's not in there. You may light bulbs, ornaments, things like that. So anyway, so I created these games, and this is just how I store them. I put them in there, but like here's an example of a game. And so I use the smaller manila envelopes, and I actually have a video on this that I will link on how to use circle time games. But each one is based on a skill, and it's made to be fast. This is not a quick game, or this is not a long drawn out game. This is a whole group game. So you're doing it together, so it needs to be interactive, right? And so I put all the pieces of each game inside the manila envelope. And so all I have to do is grab that manila envelope and head to circle time with it, right? And so this one has a song with it. And so there's instructions down there too. And so I lay all the flowers out on the ground and I sing this rhyme and I insert one of their names and they look for a flower that has that sound. So that's just an example of one game that we do. I've got another one on here. Whoops, sorry about that. This one is more matching. And so what I'll do is I'll put the pocket chart up and I will put either the numerals or the carrots up, depends on what you want to do. And then I hand out the other. So let's say I put the numerals up on the pocket chart. I hand out all the carrots and I ask them to count their carrots. Who has 4? I have 4. And then they go and put it up there, right? Super quick, very skill specific, but they love it. It's fun. They get to get up, use the pocket chart. They get to help me count. They really have gravitated to what game are we playing today? Because games make everything more fun. Gamifying learning is just the best way to get kids engaged and learning at the same time. And so these have worked really well for us and we will continue doing them. And even though I don't teach in the summer, I am creating a summer pack for those of you that do so that you can continue if you really like these games. But I'll link that information on the video so you can kind of see closer up how I use them. But those have been a nice a nice meet in the middle for my kiddos that needed a little something new in circle time. And I also felt like I was able to quickly review some skills and not make it this big thing, not make it flashcards, not make it, recite after me, not make it like that, but make it engaging. So those have worked really well. The last thing I want to share with you is math games. So back to games again. I feel like I've done a lot with literacy, and I'm working on that literacy stuff. And then in circle time, I'm able to bring in these whole group games, right? And so then that leaves small group for me. And a lot of the times, small group leads itself to math very easily because there's a lot of hands-on manipulatives that you can use for math. But one of the best ways that I've found to incorporate math skills is just through games. And some of them are so simple. And I know you've heard of some of them, but I came up with some games that, some of these are just well loved. I like them because they're faster than commercial games. And I actually have a webinar on this, a free webinar that I will link to so you can kind of see up close and personal what these games are, each game laid out. So if you want to make your own, you can. It's not necessary that you have these game boards. They're very simple to make, but I encourage you to try to bring some in. I also have these math games. The ones you're seeing on the screen are just like a general set. If you want just a general set in your classroom of various themes, this works great. I also have monthly themes, and those are the ones that I am using right now. So we are getting out our January game set. A lot of them are just the exact same game with different themes, but I love it because they already know how to play them, right? We've already learned how to play that specific game. Now it's just more fun because it looks different. We don't have to reinvent the wheel for them to be able to practice these skills. And I also love it because they sometimes teach each other how to play the game. If one kiddo forgot or, hasn't learned that game yet, they can become very independent with these games, and they're quicker, they're faster, and they get straight to the point. Because sometimes, I don't know if you've ever had kiddos want to leave when you're playing like a commercial made game. It takes too long, right? A lot of them want to leave. I want them to be able to sit down, have attention to task for a very short time, enjoy themselves, like what they did, feel accomplished, and then go, right? Then go. So that's what these games are for. So the types of games that are in there are path games, which are just generally kind of like Candyland, go through the path. Grid games. I like grid games because, and let's see if I have a picture of a grid game here. I bet I do. Let me see. Yeah, right there. So up here, the holiday grid game is so easy, right? You can just use holiday erasers you got from Target. You can use pom-poms. It's easy. Stick it in a page protector sleeve and you're ready to roll. But they work on left to right progression and that backward sweep, the sweep back, right? Just like we do when we're reading. And so that's why I love that game. And they're having to use one-to-one correspondence to count. You could use number cards, and then they would have to recognize the numeral and count that out. So there's adding a little bit more math in there. There's different ways that you can change the game to make it a little more difficult. All that's in that webinar. So check that out. There's also this graph game that's on the screen right now. They love this game. My kiddos, oh my gosh, the December one, they just ate up. Like the excitement and the screaming about who was going to win the race was pretty fun. It just makes me happy to see that they're having so much fun. And then I also kind of just sit back and go, you just have no idea how much you're learning right now, because, they'll be like, so-and-so's game, the bell won. On mine, the ornament won. And we've not had anybody with I can't remember what the other one was on there that won. And it's just so much goodness coming out of one game. And so that graph game is super fun. Collection game is also fun because they're trying to fill something up, and some kids just love to collect all the little rocks off the playground in their pockets and things like that. And so the collection game kind of leads to that. And it also works on numeral recognition. So that's on there right there with the gumball game. Let me go back up to that one I was on. Simple cover-up games. I know many of you have done these, where just adding erasers, adding something fun and tangible for them to cover up the space with, it just makes it that much more fun, and they absolutely love it. Also, all gone games are super fun. That's what the umbrellas and the hearts are. There's two kiddos, and you start with a certain amount of things, right? You start with maybe some blue pom-poms for raindrops or little hearts, candy hearts on the hearts, and you maybe start with 10 and they roll one die and they take that many away, and who's going to be all gone first. And so that one's fun too. And then let's see, races. Oh my goodness, the races are just so fun, and I absolutely love them because they're not in competition with each other. They're in competition as far as the item on the page, right? And so it makes it a lot less competitive in that sense. And we don't have to worry as much about the whole feelings getting hurt and things like that. Now we do work on that. I don't totally shut that out, and we do work on the competition side of winning and losing, but I like to do it less when it comes to learning, because the goal is not winning or losing. The goal is them learning. And so this focuses on that. Race to the top, who's going to get to the top first, which character, right? And then there's some path games on there. So I encourage you to check those out, because those are really, really fun games. And I think once you start using them, you'll be like, wow, look at all the things that they're just coming up with on their own, and that they're saying on their own, and that they're learning. And it's pretty amazing to watch. And so that is such a fun way to bring in math. So many math concepts, so many number sense concepts. So check that out. I'll put that link up there too. So that was 5. So I started with social emotional lessons to add a little bit more intentionality to our social emotional learning. And then literacy units, develop those to go deeper. I wanted to go a little bit deeper with books, a little bit deeper with literacy in general, and authors and illustrators and all the different types of things that they do in a book to communicate to us, like big letters, mean talk loud, all these amazing things, right? I wanted to go deeper with that, and so that has worked really well. Stim Challenges, that's the third one. Stim Challenges, really, really working on those intellectual skills versus the academic. Circle time games, that's going straight to academic skills, right? But they're fast, they're fun, they include everyone, and they bring a little bit of something to circle time for those kiddos who need a little bit more than just the daily routine of circle time. And then the last one is math games. I got them in a general set if you like that, or I have them, I'm going to have a growing bundle. Right now I only have December, January, February, March done with the monthly ones. So I'm going to be adding the rest. So look for that as well, because you can just change them up every month, and it's something new and exciting for them. And they can start playing some of those on their own and practicing those. Awesome way to bring in some math. And so those are the 5. So those are the 5 things that are working really well for us right now. So please look over these. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, there's a webinar for the math games, and that is in the link. There is a video on how to use circle time games if that interests you. There's also a Facebook video going further into the fall literacy unit, so you can see that a little bit up close. And there's also a video series on the social emotional units to get a closer look at those as well. So again, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm hoping you have a wonderful Sunday and a great rest of the week. Bye, guys.